Hey guys, welcome back to part 3 of this 4-part video series talking about the 4 agreements by Miguel Ruiz. Now let's jump straight into the 3rd agreement, which is don't make assumptions. And this is one that I struggle with the most. It's the one that is the most challenging for myself, and I am so guilty of making so many assumptions in my life that it was an eye-opening experience to read about this agreement, because it made me aware of how many assumptions I was actually making in my life. Okay, I was assuming that I was not good enough. I was assuming that people would respond a certain way if I would say certain things. I was assuming that I would never be successful. I was assuming so many things. I was making so many assumptions, and these were causing a lot of suffering in my life. Okay, one of the habits or behaviors that I have is to assume a response from another person if I would say or do something specific. Okay, I was afraid to say a certain thing to a person because I assumed that they would react a certain way. They would feel upset, they would feel angry, they would call me names, they would judge me, whatever it may be. Okay, and I was making assumptions that the situation would turn out badly. Okay, another thing, shame. If you're ashamed to say something, you're actually making assumptions that if you would tell this to someone, that they would judge you. It is because you're actually judging yourself for this situation or knowledge, and you think that the other person will do the same. But that's an assumption you're making, because what I found in my life is that whenever I talk about my shame, people are actually really understanding, and they make me feel like this judgment is all in my mind. But again, it's an assumption that I make, and I don't test that assumption. Okay, because I'm too afraid to talk about my shame. So I avoid it. So I keep this assumption more and more in my mind. I reaffirm it in my mind, because every time I don't talk about it, I don't test it against reality. I don't actually see whether my assumption is true or not. So instead of making assumptions, ask. Okay, be open, be clear in your communication. If you assume something might happen, test it. Test it against reality. Don't make assumptions. Okay, speak things into existence and then see for yourself whether your assumptions are actually true or not. And the best way to do this is to speak with honesty. Use your word impeccably. Okay, speak the truth, speak from your heart, speak honestly and openly, and be as clear as possible. Okay, a problem that so many people run into in relationships, for example, is that they assume, they expect their partner to know exactly what they need in a specific moment. And if their partner doesn't do or say what they expect their partner to do or say, then they feel upset, because you should know me by now, you should know this by now. Okay, and that is causing a lot of problems in the relationship because of expectations, because of assumptions that are not actually verbalize to one another. Instead of just simply asking, hey, I feel like this and I would need you to do X, would you be willing to do that? Okay, instead of doing that, people just assume that their partner knows what they need, and then they get all angry and upset and resentful, and it's an ugly place to be in. I've experienced this myself. I have found myself in very dark places because I made so many assumptions about my partner's behavior, and I was just expecting them to know what I needed instead of humbling myself and communicating what I needed. Okay, so avoid making assumptions, and if you make assumptions, test these assumptions against reality by asking. Okay, when you have a need or when you feel a certain way, let other people know. Be clear in your communication, and you will avoid so many problems, not only in your personal relationships, but also in the relationships with yourself. Okay, don't make assumptions about you not being able to do a certain thing or not being able to complete a certain task. Test it against reality. Start that project. Start taking action. Even if it's just a few minutes of work, once you get yourself going, you will probably feel like doing more. Okay, that's an assumption you made beforehand that you would not be wanting to do that. Okay, this is something that I apply in my own life all the time. I assume I will not be in the mood to do something, and then I know that, okay, this is just an assumption. Let me test it against reality. Let me take a small step towards making this project or this task and finish it, and then see how I feel afterwards. And usually once I get started, I am unstoppable. I want to continue until I finish it. So don't assume you won't be able to do it, because you might as well be able to do it once you get going. Another one, let's say you assume you will receive a negative response when you have a request for someone, okay? You can ask your question, okay? People can answer yes or no, they can agree or disagree. It's not your responsibility. It's not up to you to decide that for them in advance, okay? Don't decide for them that they will automatically reject your request, but also become comfortable with them saying no, okay? Because that's another part. You want to get comfortable with receiving the rejection without taking it personally. So if you apply all the previous agreements in your life, then you will not have a hard time accepting a rejection. But at least try, at least don't make the assumption that they will be negative towards you, because they might as well be really positive, and that might change your life in unforeseen ways. All right, so be wary, be careful, be aware of whenever you're making assumptions, and gradually start to reduce the assumptions you make and test them against reality. Ask if you have a question, if you have a desire, if you have a need. It's okay, okay? Be clear in your communication and don't make assumptions. Alright guys, I hope that was helpful. If you like the video, feel free to click that like button for me. This helps to expose the video to more people who might want to learn more about the 4 agreements by Miguel Ruiz. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, please click that subscribe button for me. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you here for the last part of this 4-part video series where I talk about the 4th agreement by Miguel Ruiz. And as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. See you soon.